making in terms of the particular focal point contact system. Well, actually, from our experience, I mean, we are collaborating with CBD and then also OECD, trying very hard to have a certain, streamlined contacting system. But then in reality, this super multidisciplinary topic of biosafety, it is extremely difficult to just locate one person in the country. So actually, it's not very practical to decide one particular focal point to contact from various agencies and also from on the various topics. So that's actually really why that we are doing this webinar, to try to assist the national level coordination mechanism. So whoever receives the information or request from whoever, the international organizations, NGOs, or industry, or academia, or whoever, they would share the information in the coordination mechanism, so that information will be always shared with the team. So this is something that we are trying to help and then also trying to encourage. So hopefully that point is agreeable to everybody. So with that, I have a pleasure to introduce Dr. Sol from Mexico, and then she will share her experience in Mexico in terms of the interagency communication. So thank you for waiting, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good night. I would like to start by thanking the organizers for the opportunity to share Mexico's experience in the interagency communication. My first slide, it's showing what it's explaining briefly what is our biosafety regulatory framework. We started very early in before 1995, and what we did at the beginning was small changes in different laws, adjusting different bylaws that were already on implementation to deal with issues on biosafety. But also very early in the mid-90s, we published a national standard for field trial evaluation of genetically modified organisms. And with this standard was the creation, a little bit before it, was the creation of a National Committee for Agricultural Biosafety, which was an advice body for the competent authority to resolve these first applications under this standard. In 1999, there was the creation of the Intersecretarial Commission on Biosafety of Genetically Modified Organisms that I will talk about a little bit further. And in 2002, we ratified the Cartagena Protocol after the Senate had ratified it. And in 2005, there was the publication or the Biosafety Law of Genetically Modified Organisms, which is the law that is now currently under implementation and considers the provisions of the Cartagena Protocol. And this year is 10 years from its publication, and we still are working with many provisions. Derived from this biosafety law, we have different bylaws, standards, coordination protocols, rules of procedures, and guidelines that you can look at in the different databases, including our National Information System. Now, what is this Intersecretarial Commission on Biosafety for Genetically Modified Organisms that we call CBOGEM? It's an interministerial commission that defines and coordinates the policies from federal public administrations, and the policies are all related with biosafety of genetically modified organisms. That is the mandate, and although it was created in 1999, it was also included in the biosafety law, and in this article explains its composition and what roles it takes. It it's integrated by 6 ministries or secretaries, as we call them in Mexico, and the National Council of Science and Technology. The ministries with the main authority with many mandates are the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Rural Development and Fisheries, and the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources. These 3 ministries have a rotated presidency within the CVOGEM. Right now, the president of this commission is the Minister or the Secretary of Agriculture. This is also a very high-level commission, and the commission has an executive secretariat, which I'm the head of the executive secretariat of CVOGEM, and also has 3 different technical scientific advisory councils. The technical committee is composed of members of the different secretaries. The scientific committee, advisory committee, is composed of 13 scientists of different disciplines, and the multi-sector advisory council, it's composed of 15 representatives of 3 different sectors: the social sector, NGOs, producers, growers, and industry. Also, we have different mechanisms for coordinating the publication and elaboration of standards. The main objective of our biosafety law is to regulate different activities with GMOs to prevent, avoid, and reduce potential risks to human health, the environment, and biodiversity, and to protect the health of plants, animals, and aquaculture. The different activities regulated by the biosafety law are imports and exports, and these have the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Treasury, which is where the customs officials are. They are involved in these activities, along with the main authorities for the regulation of GMOs in Mexico. The other activity is the confined use, which could be for teaching and technical research, and for commercial use, and the administrative act that regulates this confined use are notifications. The competent authorities are the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Agriculture, depending on which is the GMO that it's been using under confinement. The other activity regulated by our biosafety law is environmental release, and this has 3 stages: experimental release, pre-commercial, and commercial. The pre-commercial we call pilot stage, and the administrative act that regulates these are permits. Also, the main authorities are the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Agriculture, depending on the GMO. And the final activity that is regulated by the biosafety law is commercialization. This is for food, feed and processing, bioremediation or public health, and the authorizations are issued by the Ministry of Health. And it's important, we have here a formal coordination procedure where for the authorities of environment and agriculture to issue a permit in pre-commercial or commercial stages, it already has to have the authorization by the Ministry of Health. All these issues are coordinated by the CVOGEM, mainly for facilitating the implementation when is needed. Now, for the coordination of the environmental release of LMOs, we have something I think very interesting. We have 2 competent authorities, as I was saying, depending on what is the LMO, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Environment. But we also have what is called a technical binding opinion from the Ministry of Agriculture from the Ministry of Environment to the Ministry of Agriculture. For every permit to be issued, it has to have also an environmental risk assessment. And the opposite occurs when there's a LMO that is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Environment. The decision is based on risk assessment, and there are different different groups or agencies that are related with this, with the decision under the biosafety law. In the side of the Ministry of Agriculture, they have a scientific technical committee that advises the main authority, which is SENASICA, and different agencies within the Ministry of Agriculture also contributes with technical opinions. In the side of the Ministry of Environment, the main competent authority is the General Direction of Risk and Impact, Environmental Impact, and there are also several agencies that contribute with the opinion. All this coordination takes place in a formal way with, formal paperwork that goes from one desk to the other, but also there are informal and direct communication among the main authorities. One thing that helps is that all the decisions need to be communicated to the Executive Secretariat of CIBIOGEM, who is the national focal point for the Cartagena Protocol and has the mandate to keep updating our databases, the National Information System on Biosafety, the National Register for GMOs, also the VCH, GMO Platform, and OECD BioTrack. We have the possibility to keep these databases on with the information needed. Finally, the main challenges that we have seen with this is that, for example, different perspectives from different agencies need to reach consensus, and this sometimes takes time, longer than we would like, but it's important that we advance with our different communications being all in agreement. As it was said by many, human resources is also a limitation for fulfilling all the provisions that we need to accomplish, and not just that sometimes we don't have enough personnel, but also personnel that is being replaced make us need a continuous training and capacity building exercises. We have seen that the lack of an electronic automated system for the efficient management of application is a complication for many of the evaluators, because passing one application from one desk to another desk always takes time, and we want to have this administrative automated system, so more time can go for the risk assessment instead of for the management of paperwork. Also, we have a challenge that we need to communicate better with the public. We have reached very good communication with all the agencies involved in biosafety, but still we need to foster more transparency and trust in the general public and with different stakeholders. Finally, in my last slide is with relation to the role that international organizations can have, and I recognize that there are very good suggestions in the e-discussions, and the first one that I put in this slide is something that Joachim and Manuela and Misami already talk about. We would like to have information sharing among different platforms, facilitating the interconnectivity, and that will help us to facilitate submission and the availability of information. Also, I think that facilitating communication, like this webinar with innovative interacting platforms and harmonized formats, for example, for submitting information, could help to develop communication among agencies. And finally, I think that having feedback from